When my daughter told me I wasn't invited to my grandson's graduation, I thought it was a mistake, a simple misunderstanding. Maybe the invitation got lost. Maybe she forgot to mention it. Maybe, just maybe, she would call me any minute and say, "Mom, of course you're coming." But instead, when I asked her directly, she didn't hesitate. Her voice was calm, too calm. "We only invited the real mom." Real mom. Those two words didn't just hurt. They erased years of my life. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. I just stood there in my kitchen, holding the phone, staring at the wall like it would somehow explain what I had just heard. "The real mom?" I repeated quietly. "Yes," she said, almost casually. "You know, me." I felt something inside me crack, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like something that had been holding on for years finally gave up. Because the truth is, I had raised that child. Not her, not the real mom. Me. When my grandson was born, my daughter was barely ready for responsibility. She had dreams, a career, a life she didn't want interrupted, so she asked me for help. At first, it was just temporary. "Mom, can you watch him for a few weeks?" Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. I was there for his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. I packed his lunches. I helped with homework. I stayed up when he was sick. I held him when he cried. I became his safe place. And somewhere along the way, I forgot I wasn't considered his real mom, because to him, I was everything. But now suddenly I was nothing, not even invited to watch him graduate. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room surrounded by old memories, photos of him as a baby, drawings he had made for me, little notes that said, "I love you, Grandma." I picked one up and stared at it for a long time. I love you. Such simple words, so real, so honest, unlike the ones I had heard that day. We only invited the real mom. The next morning, I made a decision, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. I was done giving everything to people who only remembered me when it was convenient. Days passed, then weeks. I stopped calling. I stopped offering help. I stopped being available. At first, nothing happened. Silence. Then slowly, things started to change. My daughter called one evening. Her voice was different, less confident. "Mom, can you pick him up from school tomorrow? I have an important meeting." I paused. For years, my answer would have been immediate. "Yes, of course." But this time, "I can't," I said calmly. Silence. "You can't? Why?" "Because I have my own plans." There it was. Something I hadn't said in years. My own plans. She sounded confused. "Since when?" "Since now." I ended the call politely, but firmly. That was the first time I chose myself. And it felt strange, but also right. A few days later, she called again. This time there was urgency in her voice. "Mom, we really need your help. Things are getting difficult." Difficult? I almost smiled. Because for years, my life had revolved around making sure things were never difficult for them. And now, they were finally experiencing what life looks like without someone silently fixing everything. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I replied. She didn't like that. I could hear it in her tone. "You're being cold." Cold. That word again. Funny how setting boundaries suddenly makes you the villain. "I'm being fair," I said. And for the first time, I meant it. Weeks turned into a month. Then something unexpected happened. My grandson showed up at my door. Alone. He looked taller, older, but his eyes, they were the same. "Grandma," he said softly. My heart tightened. I stepped aside and let him in. He walked into the living room slowly, looking around like he hadn't been there in years. "Why didn't you come to my graduation?" he asked. The question hit me harder than anything else, because the truth wasn't simple. "I wasn't invited," I said gently. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, your mom didn't think I should be there." He looked confused, then hurt. But you're my grandma? There it was, simple, clear, honest, more real than anything else. I smiled sadly. I know. He sat down quietly. I wanted you there. I took a deep breath, and I wanted to be there. Silence filled the room. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. After a moment, he said something I didn't expect. Mom said you're upset. I shook my head. I'm not upset. Then what are you? I thought about it for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. I'm just done being invisible. He didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to, because children see truth in ways adults don't. He looked at me and said quietly, "You're not invisible to me." And that was enough. After he left, I sat alone in my house, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel empty. I felt free, because I finally understood something that took me years to